An empty world, no people, no jobs, no bosses, no responsibilities. Just you, a world without people, with all the time and freedom to explore it. Might sound like a dream come true to some, including our subject, but over time, loneliness and the presence of dangerous entities called nesters plague our subject's life, turning every day into a struggle to preserve not only his health, but his sanity. Join me again as I try to monitor our subject and find out just what is happening in the Glendale Archives. Welcome back. This is a continuation of the Glendale Archives explained video I did about a month back, and this one will cover the two latest episodes of the series, of the time that I'm recording this, which just so happened to be the first and last episode in terms of chronological order, so we might get quite a lot between these two episodes in terms of information on the world and what happened in it, plus getting to see the subject's mental state near the beginning of events and see how he holds up in the latest video, which could be over 100 days since everyone disappeared. Now, before we begin, I feel it would be good to recap some of the more important information we learned last time, as it is likely to come up in this episode. 1, everyone other than our subject is gone, disappeared without a trace, including animals. 2, power and water still seem to function perfectly fine after 80 days. Not only that, but stores are well stocked, including things that should have spoiled like chicken. 3, while there is no sign of any other person or animal, there are entities the subject calls nesters, human-like creatures that act erratically, often turning violent if you get too close. Not only that, but a Mr. Whiteout, a tall shadow entity that occasionally follows the subject. 4, the subject seems to have a very troubled past, having deep avoidance issues long since before everyone disappeared, and a rocky relationship with his family that may stem from his brother's death, perhaps the only one the subject was close to. And 5, his location seems to be in New York, as evidenced by both the Market Bistro by Price Chopper in Latham, New York, and the taxidermy house he visits is the New York State Museum in Albany, New York. So it would seem his house is within a day's walk of either location. And last note before we begin, last episode I referred to the character we follow as Glenn. From here on, I will start referring to them as the subject. The why of that will be revealed later.
It's been forever since I've seen another human. The city was just getting way too dangerous. I was pretty much barricaded inside my apartment, except to occasionally grab some supplies. The nesters started showing up near my apartment, and then another. I realized it wasn't the place. It was my routine. So I had to leave. I decided to make my way upstate to my childhood home. It's deep in the suburbs. The population is obviously lower, so I assumed less nesters. It's also vacant. It has been for a while, which makes it feel safer. Fewer places to hide, which means fewer reasons to move. No surprises. A lot of times I think I'm alone in a house, but I'm not. Being here, I feel safe. I feel somewhat comforted because I know the history that's in these walls. I figure if I'm gonna go down, I want to go down here.
Around the time our subject departs his apartment in the city for the house he has been squatting in. Also, the thumbnail for this video has a date, as does the world is finally empty. That one being December 8th and this one being November 29th. So this log takes place around 10 days before the world is finally empty, and in that log our subject mentioned it being 81 days since everyone disappeared. So we can roughly place this log around 70 days since the start. It also seems the city has a higher density of of nesters for some reason, presumably just due to the higher population of people before whatever happened. We also see him talk about the house he is squatting in with an odd sense of familiarity, with what seems to be moments from his childhood spliced in. Could be he actually lived in that home, but who put the footage in? Doesn't seem like something our subject would edit in. We see our subject begin his trek upstate alongside the empty roadways. He takes some time to enjoy the sights as he goes looking out over a lake. Soon the darkness catches up with our subject, something that will happen often in future logs.
So it's getting pretty dark out, and I'm picking up a nester about maybe a quarter mile out. It's just getting too dangerous to continue on foot. I have to find like a mountain house or something. I know there's some up in these mountains. I just gotta find one, and I pray it doesn't get too dark, because then it's gonna be impossible to see one. So
we see our subject use a radio to detect the presence of a nester in the area, similar to how he used it in The World is Finally Empty. He continues through the darkening forest, hoping to find shelter before it gets too dark. It takes a while, and our subject begins to worry, but eventually he stumbles onto something.
it's not getting lighter. I gotta turn this thing off for a while. As luck would have it, I stumbled upon a house deep in the woods.
The subject spots shelter and begins to move quickly. We can hear the wind howling as he goes, but there is something else behind it, almost like someone wailing. Sounds like a nester. The subject explores the interior of what is titled the North House. The house is dark, and we see a few things left out, like a Lego set on the floor mid-construction, like the inhabitants all just up and left. Here is the first sign our subject is not alone. We see a figure duck around the corner right as he looks over. Clearly missing it, he decides to settle down for the night. The subject messes with the radio some more, determining the nester to be about 3 miles away. No notice of anything closer. Perhaps his radio technique isn't as foolproof, or he doesn't know exactly what he is doing yet.
The next morning when I woke up, I couldn't believe the view that was hiding in the dark the night before.
As the subject falls asleep, the night does not pass peacefully, awoken around 3:14 a.m. by a nester wailing outside the glass doors. Oddly, our subject makes no mention of this, only remarking on the lake's beauty in the morning. The subject indulges in some more relaxing activities before leaving, like playing the guitar and messing with an old radio he found. Our subject begins his day of travel, descending from the mountain and spotting some familiar landmarks, but once again, night catches up with him. Thankfully, the subject makes it to a diner without incident, opting to turn the power on and have some coffee before bed. I mean, that seems a little counterproductive, but whatever. Finding a nice booth, he settles down for the night, remarking he's slept in worse. The night passes, and our subject immediately begins the trek home, as he calls it. Sure does seem to be his childhood home we are heading to.
All right, my house is just beyond this hill here. So we're getting in early. I'm glad about that. I gotta move because it's getting dark. The sun is starting to set here. So here we go.
gotta be mindful of these. There are steps here.
As our subject gets near the house, he notices footsteps in the snow. Must be Nestor made. How old are they is the question though. The subject attempts entry through the basement window, hoping his younger self didn't lock it. I feel like that pretty much confirms he lived here as a kid. He then demonstrates the radio trick he used to detect nesters, which we saw him use in a previous log. Deeming the house safe, he enters and begins checking it for nesters. Finding none downstairs, he heads up a floor, getting hit by a flood of old memories as he reminisces about his home, including a wooden beam he and a friend carved their names in. Unfortunately, I can't quite make out what it says, but our subject finds comfort in finding proof he was once here. He continues visiting both his and his brother's childhood rooms, noting his brother's room used to look much bigger. He then elaborates that normally, if a Nestor was in the house, he would have ran into them already. Checking the garage and the attic next, he deems the house Nestor-free.
Okay, I think we're safe. So, this is a great place to nest right here because I can put a fire in this fireplace. I can cook some food on the fire because the gas stove's not working. And here's the big thing. Plenty of routes out. So I can escape through this big door. Plenty of windows. I can escape back through it onto the basement. Or I can go over here in the kitchen where there is 2 exits. I prefer not to go upstairs because that's a place where I've been cornered before.
That sure was an interesting choice of words at the start, calling the living room a good spot to nest. He goes on about the many different escape routes, showing how diligent he can be against the nesters at times. He then says something else very interesting about being cornered upstairs in the past. Normally, I would think nesters, but this is the first time he has been here since everyone disappeared. So who would have cornered him in his own home before? An intruder? One of his family members, maybe? No way to say just yet. Moving on, the subject begins setting up for the night and building the fire for the second cooking segment of the series, grilled cheese in the fireplace, Gordon Ramsay style. He also shows pretty good knowledge in fire starting, explaining why he uses a free log base. The subject then shows us some homemade fire starter his grandfather taught him how to make. He mentions the same grandfather being skilled in woodworking. Perhaps the subject picked up other knowledge from him.
I felt safe for the first time in weeks. And then I found it. Okay, it's nearly dark. And I'm a little freaked out right now. Because, like an idiot, I didn't check every nook and cranny of this place. And I found this is the room that I came in at. So like, I was just so damn eager to check the rest of the house that I didn't think to open this freaking closet.
Sadly, it seems our subject's diligence isn't so perfect, finding a nest in the room he entered the house from. He looks over its belongings, seeming to be photos of it and maybe a lover from before they turned Nestor, playing a tape recorder that says a garbled "I'm sorry" on repeat. The subject then locks the window and basement door, hoping the nest is dead, as he calls it, although he fears the left behind pillow and backpack are a sign the Nestor will return. The subject decides to hope it is dead and presses on, prepping for his grilled cheese. The fire ready, our subject tunes the radio to a surprisingly functional weather station. He stops just in time to begin his grilled cheese, making it over the fire for that rustic feel. And thankfully, this finished grilled cheese definitely looks better than the Ramsay one, so the subject is a Michelin star level chef at least. He also mentions the radio having some stations that still broadcast, like the weather. Apparently, he thinks it's ran by multiple unmanned weather stations sending real-time data for the broadcast. Winding down, the rest of the night is not quite so peaceful.
I definitely hear something.
Hello?
I swore I heard something, but I think I'm losing my mind.
Our subject is awoken in the night by the tape recorder in the basement playing I'm Sorry. Cautiously, he checks the basement stairway, calling out for any nesters. Getting no response, he closes the door and heads back to bed. But if you go back, you can see the silhouette of a nester as he closes the door. Yet another nester he missed. The episode ends with a surprise introduction for the archivist. They don't reveal anything just yet, but it is an interesting development, concluding this log. Okay, let's see. We got a few interesting tidbits from this log. First, he was living in the city before everyone disappeared and stayed there for roughly 70 days. If this log starts around 10 days before the last, and the home he squats in is his childhood home, making the term squatting even odder to use. The subject also refers to himself as Tricky Spinner on the radio, maybe a nickname or call sign he used in the past. Another thing of note is the frequency of our subject not noticing nesters. There are a few other details, but we will save the rest for the end. For now, on to the next log. I turned my house into a weapon. So, as you should already know, this log is the latest in the series, being directly after I Don't Want to Get Better. The log begins with the subject prepping some peanut butter cookies. Seems we get another cooking segment. He fills us in on his plan to head to the northern side of the state while he preps the cookies, which is admittedly very simple. Not much of note until...
Can't believe how simple this recipe is, seriously. One sec. Okay, everything's all good. Just a nester at the door, but he moved on. And this is kind of like the consistency we're getting.
We hear the sound of a nester wailing outside, but he moves on pretty quick, and our subject brushes it off, going back to his cookies.
All right, we're here at this strange facility, so I'm just gonna wander around and see if there's anything here. I found this strange sculpture.
The subject begins his trek to the north to some facility marked on the map he found. What he calls the facility appears to be an art park full of various installations like the totem pole on a wheel or the melted facade of a house. Our subject explores for a while, eventually turning introspective again, pondering his loneliness, being unable to share his new experiences with anyone.
But I miss the camaraderie of laughing with another person. I gotta admit, I used to have some pretty elaborate jokes. I remember as a joke, I changed my name to my father's name, Gail, and I started to
dress like him and, wears glasses and stuff like that. And it was funny. I mean, I think he started to get really upset when I started to wear his pajamas and sleep in his bed, make copies of his social security card. Then it got he didn't really think that was funny. Look at this.
Well, that was concerning. Our subject's idea of a joke seems to include stealing someone's identity, his father's no less. Just another sign of our subject not understanding how to interact with others. Or could it be something darker? Perhaps. The subject has done some things in the past he might not want to talk about. He takes a short break, enjoying some hash browns before moving on, talking a bit about the nesters as he goes, noting he has seen a multiple in the woods behind his home. He comes out into a clearing, exploring a few more art installations. He mentions losing track of the date, saying it could be mid-December for all he knows. Eventually, it begins to get dark once again, and our subject begins the trek home.
It's getting dark, so I do need to get home because I don't want to be out after dark. Things don't get better after dark.
Once again, I mismanaged my time, as if I'm looking to find pain. I could feel it on my skin, and that's when it struck. There was something different about this nester, though. I kept thinking I lost him, and then I'd see him again. Usually they forget quickly, but not this one. I was able to gain some distance between me and it. Luckily, it had a very distinct sound, so I could track its distance from me on my CB radio. Next, I had to get some cleaning supplies to wash off the dirt from the attack and calm my nerves.
For at least the third time this video, the subject has lost track of time, although this time he sort of realizes he might be doing it on purpose, to seek danger, and the danger finds him. Our subject is attacked by a nester in the dark, but manages to get away. Interestingly, the nester seemed to be wearing a hospital gown. Using its distinct sound to track it, he heads to a local Target to pick up supplies to clean himself after the attack. Odd, I would figure first aid supplies would be more needed, but guess he just got dirty. Also odd, he calls what is clearly a Target the market. He picks up a bevy of beauty supplies before heading back home. We then hear about the subject's updated traps, and I'm not talking about muscles, hoping to lead to that nester into some trouble. We find ourselves in another new location, a gun store, fully stocked like every other store so far. Here, our subject grabs some supplies for home defense. We see our subject setting up what I can only describe as automated turrets. Honestly, pretty impressive. The subject seems to have a good amount of know-how across different fields. I don't think most people would be out here making fully automated defense systems in their yard. The next trap, interestingly, is just a bunch of mirrors. According to the subject, nesters near the middle of the state are brain dead and mostly blind, so the mirrors confuse them into attacking them and hurting themselves. Also interesting to note, even more variance between nesters, with the tracker and these brain dead ones. And final trap, a sensor under his doormat rigged to an alarm, meant to distract nesters away from the house. All in all, this seems like a pretty elaborate and clever system. With home defense settled, our subject decides to unwind, starting with a shower. And it's clear the scuffle with the nester got him covered in dirt, yet somehow not a scratch on him. He finishes the shower, moving over to a nice bubble bath, going through a quite intense skincare routine before eventually turning back to the nester attack, mentioning that he felt like he was about to be attacked, as nesters seemed to give off some sort of feeling in the air he describes as warm Velcro on his skin and tingling like a dose of Novocaine wearing off. Oddly specific on that second thing. He goes on mentioning he has ignored that feeling many times, and each time it almost got him killed. It seems he ignores that feeling as a way to pretend things are normal. It could also be linked to his danger-seeking tendencies. He even points out this sort of sixth sense is his most important skill for survival. Hopefully, he acts more carefully in the future.
Do this.
The subject finishes his bath without incident, taking a moment to enjoy the water jets. And maybe it's just me, but it feels like he feigns happiness or excitement here. I just don't buy the look on his face. It really seems to me like he is acting happy. Like he feels like he should be, but it looks like some disappointment creeps across at the end there. Moving on, the subject continues his intensive grooming routine, shaving and applying even more lotions and moisturizers. This whole thing seems like another attempt to feel some normalcy in his everyday life. In the middle of some more face lotion, he continues talking about nesters, most interestingly mentioning what he calls different types. Also, his ability to sense nesters is only useful on certain types, and he seems to distinguish types by location, mentioning nesters to the south are taller and stronger, but thankfully they are also nearly blind, but react fast and violently when you get too close. He then goes on to say this.
But they don't rush you. That's the thing about them. Even when you feel their presence, it doesn't mean that they're coming closer. It usually means that they've already noticed you. Running doesn't help. Running only tells them who you are. All right, next is this moisturizer.
Interesting last line there. Running doesn't help. It only tells them who you are. If you take this literally, it seems to suggest some sort of intelligence on the part of the nesters. But with a lot of things, the subject says this could be something deeper about himself. Putting on even more lotions, he moves on, telling what sounds like a cute story about him and his mom gardening. His mom telling him the flowers say thank you when watered, which she probably thought was an innocent thing to say to a child, but the subject actually remembers being quite scared by that. Even if he got over it in time, he also goes on about his inability to explain things properly to other kids, like saying things about his foot was full of sand to sort of explain it being asleep. Seems our subject might have been a bit different as a child. The way he talks make it seems like he was misunderstood both by other kids and even adults like his mom. He finally finishes cleaning himself. He takes a moment to speak about the nester from earlier and how amazed he was at its ability to track him, assuming it's on his way to him now. Seems the subject hasn't seen a nester of this type quite yet then. Getting the cookies out, the subject begins luring nesters to the house using the radio he found at the lake house. It seems he intends to lead the nester from earlier into his trap.
Yeah, I figured keeps the surrounding areas safer, less nesters for when I do need to go out and get supplies.
What's up, fuckers?
Hey out there, if you're looking for companionship, do I have a deal for you?
I know just the place. There's a big house on top of a hill not too far.
That one nester who was following me had a very distinct sound.
So if I hear him,
I'll know.
You hear that alarm?
You hear it?
One was on my front doorstep. Not today. Not today. Get out of here. There he is. That's it. That's him. That is him. Well, he's coming in clear. He's got to be right outside.
He didn't even make it past the frontline system.
Everything goes to plan. We hear the unique signal indicating the nester from earlier, followed by a gunshot and silence. The subject's reaction when the gunshot goes off is odd to me. He looks to be in shock despite his earlier confidence in the traps, even, luring the nesters here. So why would he be so surprised it worked? Did he want it to fail? Or was he feeling something other than shock or surprise? Disappointment, maybe? Either way, the video ends with the subject confirming the nester did not make it past the system, and we get another check-in from the archivist, mentioning the usual, including unreleased footage on the Patreon, ending this video and bringing me to the next part of this video. And now, one last thing before the end, I would like to try and sort of compile most of the key new stuff that we've learned this episode, starting with the subject. 1. When this started, the subject was living in a much more populated area of the state, moving to his childhood home for both safety and possibly a sense of nostalgia or normalcy, perhaps. 2. The subject seems to dabble in many fields, knowing how to operate the old radio he found as well as successfully rigging up traps for his home. Among other things, some of this knowledge passed down from family members like his grandfather. Speaking of family, his relationship with his own seems even more questionable. He speaks most fondly of his brother who passed away, and he seems to have a positive to at least neutral relationship with both his mom and grandfather. Not that we have many details yet on them, but his father, he does not seem to have a good relationship. Whether this was spurred on by Glenn stealing his identity or something else, I'm unsure. And I do wonder if this is related to that line the subject said earlier about being cornered in his childhood home. Because remember, that had to have happened before everyone disappeared. So who was he cornered by? Seems to most likely be a family member. And who's the only one he may be at odds with so far? His father? Just a guess, but 4. The subject seems to have a sort of sixth sense that he uses to feel for nesters around him, although it's less effective against certain types of nester. 5. His mental state does not appear to be improving, as he seems to put himself in danger on purpose quite often, and even comments himself on his tendency to seek pain. It also seems like he may have been different or misunderstood as a child, so it would make sense he has had trouble making connections most of his life. 6. Despite that, he had at least one friend who carved his name on a wooden beam in the subject's childhood home. 7. I think we can safely say he is still aging due to finding a new gray hair. And 8. The subject seems to be recovering from some sort of addiction, as evidenced from his line, "You're addicted to something, I know it's hurting me, and likely other people, but truthfully, I just don't want to stop." And later, his description of a dose of Novocaine wearing off. Alright, that is it for the subject. Next is nesters. 1. They appear to come in different types and stages. The subject differentiating them by type, the archivist using stages. The subject also seems to mostly split the types up by region, pointing out nesters to the south as large, fast, and aggressive, but nearly blind. The stages, theorized by the archivist, going from early, mid, to late stage as they progress from human to full nester. Late stages also maintaining that bit of humanity that causes them to seek out and attack actual humans, jealous of the humanity they lost. 2. While they do move around, they seem to be more common in high-density areas like cities, as the subject mentioned fleeing his home in the city due to increased nester population. This could help reinforce the theory that nesters were once human, or they simply migrate to where people are. 3. They also seem to carry items with them like bedding, and what I believe to be personal possessions from when they were human. The one nest we see containing photos and a tape player, also showing nesters have limited forms of speech. The archivist also believing this to be a late-stage nester that has lost all other words but "I'm sorry," perhaps due to that phrase being connected to an important memory for them. Alright, that is nesters done and dusted. Lastly, let's talk about the world. 1. The world appears to be in a sort of partial stasis. Certain things such as planes hanging in midair, power still functioning in areas, and food not perishing would almost suggest time has stopped. But not only does the subject seem to still age, the seasons change, and with it the weather and water seem to still behave the same. 2. I believe I brought this up in the previous video, but just in case, both people and animals appear to be absent from this world, and there are no clear signs of other survivors. There are some things such as the graffiti he found in the world is empty, but that could always be from before the incident. 3. On top of the still functioning power, certain radio stations such as the weather still broadcast. The subject theorizes it's some automated system that gathers data from unmanned centers and sends it out automatically on a schedule. This could be true, or it could be a part of the stasis effect. 4. The world does appear to be close or even one-to-one copy of ours. The subject visiting many locations we can find in real life and venturing out even further in future logs. 5. And lastly, while separate, this world has some connection to ours based on the archivist finding the tapes, which seem to be purposefully left by the subject. Okay, I think that's about it. And while I could go on for ages about all kinds of little things that could or could not be clues, I think this is good for now. And while I still don't think we have nearly enough information to like claim anything for certain, I think we can still have fun and throw some theories out there, so let's go. Alright, now finally let's get into my final thoughts and theories. And I don't really have anything like concrete enough to draw a theory yet, so it's just a lot of sort of mini things I think could be true. Like, I very much believe Glenn is not in our world, which I kind of think is obvious, but needs to be stated. And it also might be good to mention here real quick, some of my conclusions will be based off information I have from like behind their paywall stuff, which, you know, I don't really want to like talk about and spoil that kind of stuff. So, you know, if you want to know the whole picture, you'll just have to go subscribe to that. But yeah, it definitely seems like Glenn / the subject was just pulled from our world into this alternate reality / created copy of our world. And I think it was probably either like an intentional thing, like he was selected as a test subject, which would kind of add to other things in that world to me, like the power still functioning, food not spoiling when it should, and the weird stasis of the world where the seasons change and stuff, but things don't progress in certain other ways, like the food perishing. To me, that almost feels like it could be the control elements in like an experiment. Like whoever pulled Glenn into this world wants to see his progress into like a nester or whatever else happens without him having to worry about dying from his other needs. So, you know, power for heat and stuff and to prepare his food. And then, yeah, the food not spoiling and all that is obvious. Another thing to that, I feel like Glenn could have been picked as the subject because of, you know, who he is in particular. Like, based on what he's told us about himself, he didn't really get along with a whole lot of people, especially later on in his life. It seemed like he was pretty damn isolated, not even talking to his family. So if whoever needed an easy test subject, they could have thought, hey, no one's gonna notice this guy's gone missing. And that's how our poor subject ended up in this situation. How this like other world came about and whatnot, I still don't know. And like how our archivists got the tapes, like how they seem to cross over into our world. Like there seems to be some sort of connection between the two. And yeah, I guess the other angle could be it was some sort of world he was pulled into because of his mental state, but not as like an experiment, but as like a test sort of thing. Like either he fixes what's going on with him and he's allowed to leave, or he doesn't and he becomes a nester. That way feels a little cut and dry, but those are kind of the two worlds I have right now. Like I said, no like concrete theories or anything. It's just kind of loose stuff based off the few hard claims I think I can kind of make. But yeah, there have been like a few theories I've had as the series have ran that I've pretty much completely killed or just forgotten about. Like one that was a fun idea was that not only was the subject turning nester, but this whole thing was like a time loop and every nester was the subject. Obviously, I don't think that's the case, which is kind of a funny idea. I think I just wanted that one to be true. But yeah, I would love to hear any theories you guys have, or just, you know, any discoveries, any nesters you think you thought you spotted. Leave that all down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And of course, the last thing before we go, I'd like to thank my members, or member, as we're at currently. And as you all may have noticed, this video was members only to start. So if you do decide to become a member, you will get the deep dive videos a few days early, as well as a few other benefits. But yeah, no, thank you all for watching, and I hope I see you on the next one. Until then, peace.